excited to talk to you about some pressure cooking basics. The pressure cooker that I am using today is the Zen Chef Multifunctional Pressure Cooker. It's the 6-quart, and Zen Chef is sponsoring this video. Thank you, Zen Chef. Before we get to the pressure cooking 101 stuff, I do want to talk about the one pressure cooking question I get the most from people. This is like the hushed question that I get from folks who are afraid to use their pressure cooker. They want to know if it's going to explode. The short answer is, in my 5 or 6 years using a pressure cooker, has never exploded. Modern pressure cookers like this one have all kinds of stuff in place to prevent it from exploding. The two reasons that these pots can explode is if the pressure gets too high, blow the lid off, right? Or if the lid is not locked properly. When it comes to pressure, the lid can go flying. So the first problem is solved because it actually, even though you do seal the pot before you bring it to pressure, it still vents a little bit of steam at a time to keep that pressure high enough to cook your food quickly, but low enough to prevent an explosion. The other failsafe that is in place in a pot like this is that you actually can't turn it on until you've locked the lid. I've actually had people ask me about the story they heard about a woman whose modern pressure cooker did explode, and I dug into that a little bit, and the only story I can find is that a person did have this happen, and what they did was, before the lid was fully unlocked, they physically wrenched it open. If you have to put your back into opening the lid, the pot is not ready to open. Just leave it and wait. I know that quick releasing the pressure, which we'll get into later, can take a little bit longer than you might have thought it would the first couple times you do it, but it is worth the wait for safety. So please wait. You are not alone being afraid of an exploding pressure cooker. The first time that I used mine, I fully turned the pot on and then ran out of the kitchen and hid around the corner peeking until it was done. And I know I'm not the only person that's done that. So it's okay that even after I've assured you, you may be a little nervous. It's fine. Just turn it on, run away. Everything's gonna be great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what a pressure cooker does. One like this is actually called a multi-pot. A multi-pot is just a pressure cooker with other functions, and those functions are super handy. The first button that you're gonna need is the manual button down here. On some of the other brands, you'll see that it says pressure cook, but it's the same thing. That's the button that you'll use if you're wanting to do just a standard, something like making beans. Lock the lid, hit the manual button, set your time, walk away. The next function, one that I love and use often, is the saute function. That is what it says it is. It's a saute. It is at high heat. You're not going to be caramelizing onions with this function, but it is great if you want to quick fry up some onions and garlic to get them more fragrant before you add the rest of your soup ingredients. Lock the lid, set your time, walk away. The other thing the saute function does, you can use it at the beginning, but you can also use it at the end if you need to do a quick simmer, like say you're cooking something like a bean soup, right? That's going to take a while. But if you want to have spinach in that soup, you're not going to want to cook it for as long as you're cooking the beans. You can use the saute function to keep the heat going at the end and add that spinach and let it wilt and then turn it off, if that makes sense. If you're following a recipe, it will tell you which functions to use and when. The next function to know about is slow cooking. That's great, especially if you're concerned about pantry space. If the multi-pot you bought has a slow cook function, then you don't need your slow cooker anymore, unless you have a really big slow cooker. But if a 6-quart slow cooker will do it for you, you're all set. With slow cooking, it's really handy to have a glass lid like this. My Zen Chef multi-pot did come with a glass lid, but it's the first one I've ever had that came with one. Usually this is an accessory you'd have to buy separately, but it's handy because you can see it has a little vent on the top. It looks just like a slow cooker lid. This is also nice for if you're going to do like a simmer and you want to be able to keep an eye on things, but you don't want to cook down the liquid so much. The last function I want to talk about is one that I was so sure I'd never use, and y'all, I use it all the time, and that is the yogurt button. Yes, you can make yogurt in your multi-pot. It's like magic. It's amazing. I'm not going to get into the specifics of making yogurt here, but if you go to my website, glueandglitter.com, and search for soy yogurt, you'll find my post about it. It's got all the details you need, the ingredients, the do's and don'ts. You can also check out the comments section. People have really shared a lot of great knowledge there too. I highly recommend it. If you're even like vaguely considering making yogurt, give it a read because it's really fun. Not only is it easy, but you feel like a kitchen magician when you do it. It's great. So let's go over some of the parts of your pressure cooker that you need to know about. I remember when I got my very first multi-pot, the first thing I did was pull out the manual because I was like, how do you use this thing? And on the first page of the manual, what is there but a picture with like 1,000 arrows pointing to 1,000 different parts, and what do they all do? And it's scary. You do not need to know what all of those parts are to use your multi-pot. If you ever need to know, you can look it up in the manual or Google a specific problem. This is what you need to know for like day-to-day cooking. Let's get this lid off so that you can see what's happening here. So this is your lid. This is where most of the things you need to know live. The first thing that I want to show you is right here. This is called the pressure indicator valve. It is just a little cylinder, and when the pressure is down on your pot and it's safe to open, the cylinder is low, and as the pressure comes up, the cylinder comes up to the top. When the pressure is down, you will hear the lid unlock, but maybe you're not in the room for that. If you're not sure, you can always look at this pressure indicator valve. If the little cylinder is still up at the top, then you know you need to wait a little longer for the pressure to be fully released. The other important valve on the lid to know about is this little toggle right here. It is the pressure release valve, and it has two settings. One says is airtight or sealing, depending on what company you bought from. The language might be different, but the functions are the same. So airtight or sealing, or you've got here it says exhaust, or it'll say venting. Think of them basically as open or closed. If you're trying to bring it to pressure, you just want to turn it to the airtight side. When you're ready to release the pressure so you can get at the food inside your pot, turn it to exhaust. Steam will start shooting up out of the top. That's supposed to happen. That's what brings the pressure down. So related to the pressure release valve, let's talk really quickly about the different releases you'll encounter when you're looking at pressure cooker recipes. There are two types to know: a natural release or a quick release, and the recipe will specify which type to use. Like I mentioned, your pressure cooker is slowly venting steam constantly to keep the pressure in check. And even after the heat has turned off and your pot stops generating new steam, it'll still keep venting, just a little bit at a time. Over time, that'll naturally bring the pressure down to a point where the lid will unlock and you can open it. So if a recipe just says natural release, then just be patient. It takes about 15-20 minutes to release naturally, and wait until that little cylinder drops down, and then you're ready to get in there. The other type of release is a quick release. So when your food's done cooking, the pot's gonna start beeping at you. And for a quick release, that means you wanna get over there, turn the top to exhaust, and start shooting that steam out, and it'll come down naturally. You still need to wait until the pressure indicator valve drops down though. Don't do that toggle and then wrench the pot open. It takes a couple minutes to come down. Just let it do its thing and everything will be fine. The other thing you might encounter is a lot of recipes will say to do something like a 10-minute natural release. That just means that when you hear that I'm done cooking beep, set yourself a 10-minute timer, and when that timer goes off, then you're ready to turn it to exhaust and release the rest of the pressure naturally. So let's get this lid back on here, and I'll show you how to lock the lid, which is important. Like I said, your pot won't turn on unless your lid is correctly locked, and that's very easy to do. All you do is put the lid on, and you'll notice when you do it, you can see there's only one position where the lid will even go down. So once it's seated, it'll be on the open position, and then you just turn it all the way to closed. Just turn it as far as it'll go, and then it's locked and ready to go. This is not an every time you're cooking thing, but it is something good to know about. Inside the lid here is a little like white translucent ring. It's called the sealing ring, and there are a couple of things to know about the sealing ring. What it does is it seals your lid, so it helps prevent excess steam from escaping and, you know, monkeying with your pressure. You just want a little bit of steam to be coming out of the top. If steam is like coming out of the sides, there's a problem most likely with your sealing ring. These things can get warped. They can also get torn if you're like mess with it too much. They're not super delicate, but you know, you want to be careful. If something happens to your sealing ring, they are very cheap. You can just find one, like Amazon has them very cheaply. Just pull it right out, and when the new one comes, you can replace it. The other thing about the sealing ring is that it can hold on to smells. So if you notice that even after you clean your inner pot, if you notice that your pot is still a little bit stinky, it could be the sealing ring that's the culprit. If that's the case, just pull it out gently and then wash it in warm soapy water and then let it dry. It is dishwasher safe, but I don't recommend putting it in the dishwasher because stuff moves around in there and you just don't want to risk damaging it, because it is easy to replace, but you do have to wait for a replacement, and in the meantime you can't pressure cook, and that stinks, so don't do that. The last little part of your pressure cooker that I want to talk about, and I'm going to unplug this so that I can turn it around. You can see on the back here, this is the condensation cup. And you can also see that it easily, well, not when I'm doing it backwards, but it pops right out. And this is just a little cup that catches condensation. You know, all that steam coming out has to go somewhere, and it often will go right in here. You do not have to clean this every time you use your pressure cooker, but it is good to just give it a glance. Also, it does contain standing water, so it can get a little funky. And if it does, just use a little warm soapy water to wash it out. You know, empty it and wash it, and then it just pops right back in. So I think that covers pretty much everything you need to know to get started with your pressure cooker. If there's anything that I didn't cover in this video that you were hoping to learn, I hope you'll leave a question below. I love helping people get acquainted with their kitchen gadgets. I also hope that you'll check out my website, glueandglitter.com. I've got lots of recipes for pressure cookers and multi-pots. So go browse through and find something delicious. Happy cooking!